It started with a video.
Hey guys, what is up? My name is Ashley and welcome to Ashley's Roses. Now, I may look like the average teenager, hanging out with friends, living life, being clumsy as ever, but I can tell you this, I am not like the average teenager.
Which progressed to sharing other stories.
Hi, my name is Nick DeBreezy Jr. and I'm 34 years old and I have cystic fibrosis.
Hi, I'm Abby Robinson. I'm 18 years old. I'm a sophomore at UC Santa Barbara and I have cystic fibrosis.
Hi, my name is Angel Mamino Haynes. I'm 32 years old and I have cystic fibrosis.
My name is Melissa Papadrakis. I'm 31 years old and I have cystic fibrosis.
To advocating for proper representation in media, to then creating a company. You've seen me grow up online, sharing my journey of living with cystic fibrosis. But now I'm excited to extend the purpose of my mission through my company, Roseraie Media. The idea for Roseraie Media began to grow when desiring to strip away the labels of what society has put on individuals with invisible health conditions and give them voices so that they feel seen, heard, recognized, and supported. This is only the beginning, as there are so many more stories to tell and represent through purposeful media, so that it inspires growth of awareness and bring change for invisible conditions in this modern, evolving world.
She's making her way down here. I think, Ashley, come on up here. I think the first question on everyone's mind is your heart in all this, your book, the film, your company, all that is to bring awareness to those struggling with cystic fibrosis, and as you mentioned in one of the earlier shorts, just the many hidden illnesses or things that people deal with each and every day. So let's go back in time a little bit. At what point do you recall becoming aware of what this thing, cystic fibrosis, is and how it was going to have an impact on your life?
Well, I knew from a young age that I was different a little bit from everyone else because I would have sleepovers and my friends would want to try out my breathing devices and use my breathing treatments and such and see what it's like. And it was normal to talk about that, but it wasn't until I was 12 where I understood that cystic fibrosis is a very serious disease. There's no cure for it. There have been medical advancements that have been made to help make it more manageable over the years, but there's still a 10% of the community who are not able to have that medication, and it's unpredictable with what the future can be with this disease. And it's kind of where I started to realize, oh, I need to share my story and talk about it because it is a rare disease, and there's only 40,000 people in the U.S. who have it. So it's not talked about a lot. A little bit of it's shown in media, but I realized I needed to be a part of the change to be able to talk about it.
At some point, you go from launching your YouTube channel. It's around that time where you have some pretty big setbacks. And at some point, you decide you're going to start writing some poems. And so going from just writing poems, journaling, to say, actually, I think this might actually be a book that's worthy of being published. What went into that process of actually wanting to put your full self out there? Because that's kind of a transparent thing to do, to share poetry with the world or thoughts or experiences with the world. So what really helped you turn the corner to take something that was very private and personal and put it out for the public?
Yeah, so I began writing my poems around 2015, 2016. A lot of it has to do with cystic fibrosis. But it also involved other situations that were occurring in my life, and I didn't know how to express what I was feeling. I didn't know what these emotions were, and at that time I didn't trust therapists and psychologists at the time, so I didn't want to go and talk to people, so I would just write it down. And it wasn't until we were doing I Choose You, and I was an editor, Brian, we were in the editing suite and there was something that needed to be changed in one of the edits, and so I started reading a couple poems and he suggested I turn it into a book, and I'm like, no one will read that. And then after graduating, I was bored and I was looking at my poems. I'm like, oh, I have like a good chunk of poems. I'm like, let's see what we can do with this and create art from it. And it was terrifying putting out poetry because it's very vulnerable, and it would show like a different aspect because everyone sees me as positive Ashley, positive that, and not knowing that I sometimes deal with anxiety, and I've dealt with depression, I've dealt with survivor's guilt. You know, there's a whole bunch of things of the mental side that no one sees with cystic fibrosis. And so to put that out there, I was terrified to do that. And then once I did, I was like, okay, what are people going to say? Like, it's like revealing a different side of me. But it's important because social media is fake. It's what you want people to see. And I wanted to pull that curtain, and I wanted to start to have serious conversations because it's important. And you know, I wanted my fellow cystic fibrosis warriors to also see that as well and gain confidence to be able to talk about it.
Right. And it was an incredibly brave move on your part to do that. And so you end up going to study film. And then the idea sparks about taking this book and turning it into a film. And so what was that process like? Because I can imagine as someone who is not a filmmaker, the process of creation is very different. At the end credits, there were at least 25, if not more, people that were part of the filming process and the editing process. And just from your perspective, what was it like, quite literally, like breathing life from your written work into something of a visual art?
So during the time that I had the idea to write the screenplay, I was still doing the final revisions of the book. So it was a little bit confusing for my brain to write poetry and then also a screenplay because I'm trying to shape a story from the poetry book. But we had just graduated and we're all hungry to work, ready to work, and there are strikes occurring in Hollywood. And I was bored and I wanted to work, and I knew my colleagues were ready to work, and so I pitched it to my producers, and they took it on, and they saw the concept, they saw where it could go, and I just trusted them with it, that they could put it together somehow and help me with it. The screenplay, there was a completely different version, and we had to throw that out while we were on set. And I had to rebuild a completely different story while we were on set, which is not normal. But the original concept of this film, vastly different. I actually don't remember what it is, so don't ask me, I don't remember. But it's more powerful with what we created. But the process was unlike anything normal because we were used to our thesis films and our capstones, and only a couple of us had worked on other short films that were outside of school. So my producers had to deal with permits and so many other things. They were the producers. I was just director. I was just the director. But my producers took it on and got crew and found places to film it at, and took my desires of what I wanted and brought it to life. So it really wouldn't have happened without my crew.
Let's talk a little bit about the film itself. It was an interesting choice having a film that didn't have any dialogue other than narration. And so what went into the process to go that route? Because visually, we have all kinds of things going on. And we, I think, in our minds can imagine what some of the dialogue might be, but you stuck with voiceover narration, focused on your written work. And so what was that decision about? Was that part of the early vision, or is that something that changed along the way as well?
I wanted to narrate it from the beginning because it was the only person I felt that could portray the emotions for each film was me, because it was my experiences. But with the cast, I had seen them in previous work, and Birdie played Leslie in I Choose You. So I knew that they would be able to bring that aspect to life with dance and the emotional depth with that. And then the other actors I had seen in other films, and I had met them. So I knew that there was more potential that they could they could bring to the film. I hand selected them and hoped that they would say yes when I wrote the screenplay. But I told them it was different, it was experimental, which was something it's not in my comfort zone. For me, it was very challenging to write. I didn't understand the screenplay that I was writing, to be honest. There are times when I'm talking to people, I'm like, I don't know what I'm writing, so we're just gonna go with the flow and see what happens. But I did tell the cast and the crew that I wanted this film to challenge all of us and to push us, and that includes improv and see where they're gonna take it. I knew that all my cast were method actors, so I knew that they would base it off of emotions or experiences or what I would tell them of what the experience was of the poem, so then they could apply it to what they performed on screen. So.
Got a treat with the other two shorts that you showed before the feature premiere. Is there one style that's easier or that you prefer more? You've got very personal story with Beauty Grown From Thorns. You've got a less personal story with Italian bakery and restaurant. As a filmmaker, do you have a preference for what style or genre that you personally prefer?
Well, I love documentaries. That has been my #1 favorite genre. But I also love musical theater and dance films. And I felt like I got accomplished a little step of that with I Choose You. I definitely want to do something bigger and bolder one day. Be ready. So that's one day down the road. But documentaries, I've always loved that because I feel like you really get a different raw aspect to the person and the subject that it's on. But as a director or as a producer, I focus more on what's the story, what's the message behind it. I have a wide range that I'd like to do or I'd like to pursue and produce as well. But at the end of the day, it depends on what the message is and if there's a story to tell. But I don't want to just put anything out there or have everyone to expect what I'm going to put out there. If it causes the audience to feel something, great. Makes you cry, even better. But I prefer there to be a message.
Let me ask this. You mentioned like you're also launching this company at the same time, and you kind of gave me an answer when we were at the pre-party. So I kind of think I know where you're going to go with this. But are you already thinking about what the next step is, what the next project is, and if so, will you share it with us?
When I began writing poems for Beauty Grown From Thorns and independently publishing my first poetry book, then later cinematically bringing the poems to life with the film adaptation, Beauty Grown From Thorns, I never would have imagined the opportunities that I have had throughout this whole process. And I'm incredibly thankful for the audiences that it has been able to impact of sharing my story of cystic fibrosis. Not only has this journey challenged me as a writer and a director, but it's also challenged me as an advocate for the cystic fibrosis community. I am excited to announce that Beauty Grown From Thorns is set to be submitted into film festivals this year and next year. And I'm so excited for the different audiences that are going to have the opportunity to see this film and also learn more about cystic fibrosis. And as much as I really want to release the film and show it to the public, unfortunately, I am unable to do so at this moment since it is being reviewed by film festivals for submissions. But I have even more exciting news. The special edition of Beauty Grown From Thorns is now available on Amazon, and in this edition, which is very special, not only do you have the original 65 poems, there are 11 new poems added to this, and is now divided into 3 different chapters: Slow Burn, Ashes, and Regrowth. In each chapter, it tells about the rise and the fall and just my journey of living with cystic fibrosis. On top of that, it gives insights to the making of Beauty Grown From Thorns, stills from the film, and the complete screenplay. Along with that, there are new illustrations. So I will give you guys a little glimpse into this book. This is an example of what the 3rd chapter, Regrowth, looks like. The stills from the film look like this, and there are more. The special edition of Beauty Grown From Thorns is now available on Amazon, and you can get your own copy there, as well as the original Beauty Grown From Thorns and the poetry book I Caught The Bouquet. If you would like your own personalized keepsake of this book, you can also purchase it on the Roseraie Media shop, where you can have a signed copy and also browse some of the other Roseraie Media apparel. The links will be available in the description box below, but I will also have a QR code here on the screen where you can scan it and get your own copy today.